On New Dawn, we do want to take a look at the dailies today, and we start with the People Daily. And top story on the People Daily here is Raila reaps big from Gen Z sacrifices. Of course, that is a story on this particular newspaper. On page 4, they say, after taking the bullet for Ruto amidst protests by youth in which some paid with their blood, state formally tables as new leaders bid for AU top position. Now, also on this particular page, you have the members of parliament who will vet the Ruto cabinet nominees. We have Moses Wetangula, Gladys Sholei, Owen Baya, Junet Mohammed, Robert Mbui, Mishimboko, Kimani Shungwa, and Mary Emase. And this is a story, the story about Raila reaping big is a story on page 4. Just let's take a look at that. And it says, the government yesterday appeared to repay opposition leader Raila Odinga a political debt when it formally submitted his bid for the position of African Union Commission chairperson. Latest developments come only days after Raila marshaled 4 of his party's senior-most officials to join President William Ruto's new-look cabinet at a time the government was fighting for its political survival against deadly onslaught from Generation Z movement, a typical scratch my back, I scratch yours tactic. This is a story on page 4 of the People Daily. Of course, you can grab that particular newspaper and take a look at that particular story. Now, another story that is making headlines on the People Daily is queries raised over 2.9 billion Kenya Power meter deal. Now, this is a story on page 13 of this particular newspaper. Let's just take a look at that and see exactly what it is saying about that. Yes, we are here. Senators are investigating how Kenya Power awarded 2.9 billion smart meter contract to a local company, with lawmakers raising the possibility of collusion in the deal. Now, raising more questions was how the utility firm requested smart meters and transformers to be listed as common user items just prior to the award of the tender. That is a story on the People Daily, and it is on page 13 of this particular newspaper. You can grab your copy and get a look at that. I also want to take a look at the Standard and what the top story on the Standard is. And we see the tight corner. Deputy President's fate hangs in balance after a night meeting at the house of a senior government member discussed his impeachment on grounds of insubordination and pushing for tax rebellion. This is a story on page 4 of the Standard. Also, after the CSS, Ruto asked to land on PSS. This is also a story on page 6 of the Standard newspaper. Another top story on this particular newspaper is William Ruto show. President goes all out to woo Kenyans. Meet the people. The president has started a series of town halls where he engages Kenyans. He picks questions and moderates the sessions too. This is a story on page 2 of the Standard. Of course, you can grab that particular newspaper and get to see exactly what some of the stories that have been given priority as far as news is concerned. I also want us to take a look at the Star, and this is Ruto, top story on the Star newspaper is Ruto to slash PS lots and appoint Raila allies. Of course, this is a story on page 6 of this particular newspaper. Head of state wants a lean, efficient government as demanded by protesters. And of course, we'll be getting in this conversation just to try and see how different people are gaining from these protests that rock the country for weeks. Now, pain, anxiety for families with missing loved ones. This is also a story on page 5 to 6 of the Star. Of course, taking a look at those people that have been were lost during protest, and of course, the report saying that 51 bodies are yet to be identified at the city mortuary. Another story here is how Ruto Raila Pact will weaken accountability. And hunger levels in Kenya stubbornly high. This is according to the United Nations. Of course, Azimio ni mahututi. This is Taifa Leo telling us the opposition coalition is no more. This, of course, following what we've been able to witness recently, and that is the PNU party actually saying that they want out of this coalition, coming days after Na Kenya party wrote a letter to ask to formally request to exit this particular coalition. The Daily Nation says revealed 54 billion Ruto budget West. And of course, taking a look at an analysis of government's expenditure reveals at least 54 billion wasteful spending, explaining President William Ruto's directive to state agencies to slash huge allocations to hospitality travel, confidential kitties, and overlapping roles. This is a story on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Another story here that is making headlines on this particular newspaper is State at last submits Raila's bid for Africa Union Commission top seat. This is a story on page 12. And uphill task for CS nominees amid public objections. Of course, quite a number. The public says we do not want them again in those particular offices. And this is a story on page 8. And of course, that particular process of vetting them will start on the 1st of August. Protester found dead, others missing. This is a story on page 2 of the Daily Nation. And also one of the stories that has been given priority in this particular newspaper is KRA allowed D candidates into flawed job interviews. Now, Kenya Revenue Authority interviewed academic failures for revenue service assistant positions it filled last year in what has exposed more weaknesses in the exercise that has since been quashed by the High Court for being unconstitutional. This is a story on the back page of the Daily Nation. Now, with my guests here, of course, Senator Gloria Oruoba, thank you so much for making time. Nurdin Kagai, who is an advocate of the High Court, and also Honorable Wilson Sosion. Thank you so much for making time this morning. We do want to start with the People Daily, and this is what it says. Raila reaps big from Gen Z sacrifices. I want us to start from there. Did the opposition reap where it did not sow, especially with what we've been able to see as far as appointments and the AU position is concerned? Because the AU position did come earlier, but you know, with the current developments in the political arena, it looks a little bit suspicious. Let me start with you, Senator.
Good morning.
Morning to you.
I have a lot to say, so I'm going to weigh my words. You know, when I joined politics in 2019, I came from a corporate background. And in the corporate world, things work differently. You showcase your skill set, and then you are supposed to be rewarded for your skills. But when I joined politics, quickly I learned that people will grab any opportunity before you can even open your eyes and realize this was an opportunity that was designed for you. And I feel bad because I have mixed feelings. First, I think, you know, when you have a movement that has purpose, which is what Gen Z had, a movement that had purpose, and the movement was so clear in the objectives, especially towards the finance bill, that they actually achieved the objective. The problem then is when you look at the political setup in Kenya is, how is our politics set up? How do we run our politics? Our politics is that there's a lot of, you have to grab the opportunity. Every single mentor that I had to deal with from 2019, woman or man, told me, don't wait to be given a platform, grab it. Don't wait to be given the microphone, you know, grab it. So what has happened here is a movement with purpose and objective, almost like a corporate entity, trying to operate in a political field. And what will happen is when you say, we don't have a leader, we don't have a face, we don't have a secretariat, we don't have anything, then the political organs that are there, obviously, one being ODM, ODM has always pushed for some of the changes that Gen Z were actually articulating, right? Even by the time we had the conversation with ODM as a government, at the beginning, just when we were sworn in, they were on the streets. So I don't feel like they took up the opportunity. I feel like it was an opportunity that was on the table for anyone at that moment who saw the opportunity to grab it. And what I saw, for me, in my amateur political 3 years worth of experience is there is this seat that someone needs to sit on. And repeatedly, I was watching, and Gen Z was saying, no, we don't have a leader. No, we don't want to float. No, we don't want to have conversation. No, at one point, something has got to give. And if there is a government saying, we want to sit on the table with leaders. I saw bloggers, I even saw people who are not even part of the Gen Z movement grab that opportunity and say, we are coming in as a sort of outfit that is representing, I don't know if it's teachers or whatever. People just grab the moment. And for me, I felt like that was a lost opportunity literally, for Gen Z and their leaders, because they do have leaders, and their leaders to actually, that change that they wanted to institute, that was a lost opportunity. Because today, when we're talking about did Raila Odinga reap from where he did not sow, he has been sowing seeds as the opposition leader for so long, so you cannot say that. But did he reap from the Gen Z movement? Absolutely yes. Why? Gen Z refused to come to the table. When we were doing, when we were having campaigns in 2021, and we were organizing these economic outfits, I remember trying to put together the civil society and telling them that our presidential candidate has signed a charter with the people with disability, with the teachers, with what. So I said, as civil society, because it is my background as well, please let us go and sign a charter. And because if this guy gets into power, we can hold him to that charter and say, one of the things that we signed as a charter. Do you know, from the civil society that you see today, I think we managed to put together a room of about maximum 70 people. Those are the people who turned up. Again, a lost opportunity. So we can keep going back and forth about it, but where other people see problems in the political world,
people see an opportunity.
They see opportunities. And I can promise you this. Going forward, you're talking about the permanent secretaries being switched up. You know, you keep saying you're leaderless, you're faceless, you're what? These positions are opportunities for our young leaders to actually get into government and literally be the change makers of the theory that they keep talking and announcing. You will have a place and you're like, now implement that thing you're talking about. Okay. That is how people like Dennis Itumbi and all these young guys who are in government, yeah? That's how they got in. They saw opportunities, they grabbed in, and they literally are like, okay, this is where I'm going to try and have a change.
Okay, let me bring in Nudin. Nudin, this is the thing, you know, it's a movement that believed that to some extent, if at all we were going to have a leader sit on the table, and some of the demands that we are presenting do not need for us to have a conversation. There's this particular notion that has been going around that if we had someone lead us to some extent, it could they could be compromised. That's the thing. And now their fight, you know, crying wolf here and saying the fight, they went to the street, they fought for this, they fought for the changes that we're actually experiencing right now, but the people that are benefiting from that are totally different. Where did they drop the ball when it comes to grabbing these particular opportunities that Senator Aguero is speaking about?
You know, there's something, you've asked about Raila, there's something she forgot to tell you, that the politicians have the act of daring to be shameless. So he saw an opportunity and he ran for it. And that is a sad reality. From my interactions with the young people who have been demonstrating, courtesy of the fact that we have been representing them in court, I came to understand something, and in playing the devil's advocate, I'll tell you something. The reason why they say they are, for example, leaderless, it's because of history. You know, if you look at, for example, our political leaders, these are all children from Kano, all right? They know the Kano politics way of things. And if you look at how Mo used to deal with such issues, he would call a couple of student leaders, and then they'll be compromised, and then that so-called, as they call it, rebellion, which is not a rebellion, would be quashed. So in them saying they are leaderless, and them saying they are tribeless, which is a very good thing, which the political class doesn't like to hear. That's why you're seeing we're being mobbed now into political ethnicities right now, you know. They are tribeless, they are leaderless, and they are partyless. Because most of these political parties belong to individuals. And these political so-called political party leaders decide the way forward. If you look at, for example, some political parties like ODM, their constitution says they subscribe their ideals and whatnot as per the party leader. So if the party leader believes that they were going to go left, that's why you see they say, come on left, come on right, sitting in Ngombe. So that's why they were saying they do not want to be carried pumpkin, in other words. Okay. But in listening to them, for example, they do have valid reasons. And I don't think that their steam has been quashed, because the best of my knowledge, they're saying nani. So we wait to see what they're doing on nani. But if you ask me, our political leaders are selfish. That is true. Okay. And they are reaping where, in this particular instance, they didn't sow anything here. Okay, because they tried, listen, they tried this in 2023, when the first couple of months, people were demonstrating, and they were going to State House apparently. They kept saying, Omena Calf State House, all right? They never went. So that steam died. Now, this opportunity arose, and that's where they took it. The sad reality is that they're doing this when families are still burying their loved ones, when families are still looking for their loved ones, and that you're being told they'll compensate you. Nobody will compensate a life that you've lost.
Okay, so is the timing wrong, or what are we saying?
No, it's not even about the time, it's the actions, all right? Because right now you're saying that 4 people from ODM will become cabinet secretaries. I had the opportunity of reading the ODM, both the Azimio and Kenya Kwanza manifestos. So you're going to tell me that this same Azimio that was telling people during 2023 when they were demonstrating that chukua hustler fund, usilipe ni pesa yako. So that same individual is now meant to implement hustler fund.
Okay.
Listen, then you're telling me that this so-called person who was saying this government is taxing people to oblivion is now going to be in charge of issues on how to raise finances. The president is on record saying, after the names, after he mentioned the names, that he has brought in ODM to help him collect taxes to develop the country. So you tell me today, where will John Mbadi sit or stand when people ask him a question, why are the taxes going up? What will he say?
Okay, we wait and see, because we have no idea whether they're going to go up or not. Now, this is the thing. Let me were these positions supposed to be given to the Gen Z, people that, the young people that took to the streets?
I think we narrowed down to specifics rather than being extremely general. The Gen Zs came and raised issues. They never demanded for positions for Gen Zs, but they raised issues to do with corruption, that then we must bring corruption to an end. And number 2, they even went further and made demands on good governance. And that's where they demanded for dismissal of the cabinet. They raised issues about the economy, that we must up our game in turning around the economy. These are issues that spoke very well indeed to the president. And the president said, yes, I'm listening to this. The issues look very genuine. And therefore saying, the Gen Zs deserved appointments, to me, I don't see any merit on that. They raised issues. And when they raised issues, there are normal cartels, the scavengers, the hyenas of politics in this country, the dishonest ones, hijacked the process. That is why it turned chaotic and violent, and we saw violence for quite a number of days. But nevertheless, the message had come through. And the president, being who he is, very progressive, and he had looked at these issues of Gen Zs, some of them as making sense. Of course, they deserve the cabinet. And he made it very clear, I'm doing what he called a broad-based constitution of government, to be able to deliver his manifesto to Kenyans. And my learned friend here, you should know, in elections, if a president is elected, you are elected on a manifesto. Anyone else you invite to your government will come and implement. And I step in the right direction. It is in these Kenyans to run the country,
To be on board.
and we saw the president visit even regions that did not vote for him, including Nyanza, and started working with elected leaders, with governors, and with everybody else. And I think this is a rare gesture for a president. In the history of our politics, we are used to neglecting and balkanizing opposition areas. But I think the president has been very clear. And in appointing these 4 individuals, that is, and you can see there are key party leaders, the deputy party leaders of ODM, that is Oparanya and Hassan Joho, the minority leader of Pio and I to Energy, and John Mbadi, the chairman of ODM, to Treasury. You can see it's a deliberate strategy of bringing that political shade together with the supporters to fully support the agenda of the president. And the agenda of the president is not personal, it's for the country. He has outlined what he intends to do. The 5 key pillars: reforming agriculture. The ODM regions, they have a lot to benefit in terms of agriculture, including turning around the sugar industry, reforming the micro, small, medium enterprise.
Young people who feel like they were changing this?
Reforming.
That's what I wanted to comment. Gen Z didn't go and ask for jobs. That is true. There is nowhere where they protested as they were asking for jobs. That is true. But let's be honest to each other. If I missed the mark because I did not have youthful people or representation of youth within my cabinet, as a leader, I should be able to say, okay, fine, let me, because maybe they might not have the experience to run that job as cabinet secretary, because it's a big portfolio. It's not also something you can pick up right from high school and you are a cabinet secretary. However, I would like to see, for instance, people like the nominee for youth and sports, who, by the way, everyone was shocked to see him back, right? But I mean, you know, I keep saying that you could be all of these things, you could have done all of these nice things, and then one situation gets you in a position where people feel you're not worthy of that position, right? He has to prove himself back to the table. I would like to see him working, particularly because he has been given a docket for youth. I should not see that as a waziri for youth, who, by the way, has come back amidst the controversy. I should not see someone like Murkomen having an advisor who's anything above 35 years old. Okay. Because at the end of the day, Gen Z did not ask for jobs, but Gen Z have to feel represented. And let me, you know, I have a son who's 16, turning 17 years old. Sometimes he talks and I'm like, which world does this person live in? Because there's a disconnect. And what we're trying to say is, for that disconnect between the youth and cabinet, for that void to be filled, you have to be able to have people within your team that will tell you, by the way, this might look good in your theory, but for the youth who went out to the streets to demand ABCD, they would rather take this approach. So where do you see that representation? That is my question. Okay. So for me, I have to be honest. And you know, this is why you asked me why I have been quiet and sitting in the sidelines. I haven't taken up shows and things. It's because I was also trying, you know, sometimes when things are happening too fast, curriculum inakimbia haraka haraka hii syllabus. So you have to sit, you try and understand, analyze for you to be able to come and speak. And my analysis is that as we are building a cabinet that represent what are we calling it, broad-based national government, that should not leave out the fact that the people who went to the streets are Gen Z. How do we represent them in that cabinet? How do we represent them in those decisions? I loved to see the president doing the town hall, because that is also another form of saying, let's stop doing media interviews with these old people who are sitting to watch us at 7 o'clock. Okay. Let us now engage Gen Z and the young people in the town hall. You see, that's a different approach. Right. So the different approach that I'm saying, they didn't ask for jobs, but that doesn't mean that they should not be offered jobs. Okay, Gloria, I want to take a break, but Director, kindly allow me 30 seconds to touch on one of the top stories of the Standard, and this is a tight corner. The Deputy President's fate hangs in the balance after a night meeting at the house of a senior government member discussed his impeachment on the grounds of insubordination and pushing for tax rebellion. 30 seconds, just comments from each one of you. Let me start with you, Nudin.
First and foremost, scheming as usual. You see, that you can relate that to Raila ripping. In this sphere they are in, there's always shortchanging, there are schemes and it all. It will be interesting to see how they move that motion and how it passes. Yes, he has issues, and he's just declared that he loves his people very much, and he carries himself as a deputy president for a region, which is sad and unfortunate to me. But at the end of the day, I believe that it will be interesting to see how the route it takes, because now there are no alliances that have been formed, and we know and we can clearly see them. So at the end of the day, I believe these are sideshows. The government came into office, as he says, it has a manifesto. But I'll tell you again, there is no manifesto on any document in this country bigger or better than the Constitution. So even if, for example, we said your manifesto, you have a manifesto. If your manifesto does not align with the law, then it is void ab initio. Okay, so see you in 30 seconds, kindly, before I take a break.
Yes, I was clearing with the aspect of the manifesto, that of course, and I agree, there cannot be a manifesto that is against the law. It must be aligned with the law. And if you look at the issues of the Gen Zs, they are properly addressed by the President's agenda on the manifesto. That is reforming agriculture, reforming micro, small, medium enterprises. That is where many youth really take up space in terms of employment. Digital superhighway, and you've seen the President developing ICT hubs right across the country, and that is going to create job opportunities. The housing pillar, the universal health care, and of course the creative economy. And I think very largely the President's agenda focuses on the interest of the youth and creation of jobs. Okay. And has been very, very, very clear about it. And I think when the Gen Zs came out, part of it was that part of the question is that is the economy is turning around so slowly. We wanted to move faster. We want jobs created for us, and we want hopes and opportunities. Okay, hold on to that. Whereas in terms of leadership, let me check on Gloria. Even if they didn't ask for leadership, I think it is good to accommodate them. And I think one was accommodated as the CS. President. How do you go about that?
The impeachment of the deputy president. I say when you poke a bear, don't expect things to be calm. When you rattle a snake, the results are going to be there. If you keep poking a bear, it's going to respond. So that I don't have any more comments other than. So this was coming. Your lane. This was coming. No, I'm just saying when you poke a bear and when you rattle a snake. Right. That's all I have to say about that. Don't go poking bears and expecting calmness, and do not go rattling snakes. That's all I can say. Okay. We want to I know firsthand about that. So when I'm poking bears, I also know that I'm going to get something back. We'll be coming back to that conversation as we take this particular break. When we come back, we'll be taking a look at healing the nation based on what has happened here in the country in the past few weeks, and also some of the experiences we've been able to have, and what have we learned from that. Where do we start when it comes to now uniting and speaking in one voice as a united country? All right, we take a break. We'll be back in a few.
Saturday morning won't